All right, next let's take a look at this second government-wide financial statement, and that's going to be your statement of activities. This statement presents revenues, expenses for the governmental entity, but it's a slightly different way from what you're used to seeing, how you're used to seeing those revenues and expenses displayed as far as a for-profit class would go. So these are going to look very intimidating. I'll just be honest with you. The first time you see one of these, it's going to freak you out. The second time you see one of these, it's going to freak you out. But we've got an example that we're going to walk through step by step, and hopefully you'll see, again, just like with the statement of net position, that it's really not quite as intimidating as it looks. It's just a lot more information, a lot more detailed information. Okay, so essentially what we're doing these for, it's the statement of activities shows the net cost of activities. So how much did it cost for us to run this government program? How much can we attribute to each one of these programs, right? It's also going to show us our general revenues like property taxes, and we add those to those costs, right, to get our change in net position, and then we'll get an ending net position based on the difference or the addition of our change in net position to our beginning net position at the beginning of the year. So we will be able to reconcile it back to the statement of activity, we'll be able to reconcile the statement of activities back to the statement of net position, right? I mean, think about it just like with your income statement, your balance sheet, you are able to reconcile the two numbers from your income statement, end up on your balance sheet via the retained earnings statement and all that. With this one, we don't have the retained earnings statement. We're just going to be able to look back and say, oh, okay, our net position at the end of the year is the same. So we're going to look at this in a lot more detail, and like I said, there's going to be a step-by-step guide for completing this statement. Once again, this is one of the most complex and different from what you've seen as in your for-profit classes, but I think if you just hang on, follow the directions, follow the guide, I think you can do it pretty easily. So let's get on with an example here. So this is what your statement of activities is going to initially look like. This is just a blank statement of activities. Yes, it's a little overwhelming. There is a lot going on in this, right? You've got 6 columns across, you got tons of rows going up and down. So it's a little overwhelming, but don't worry, we're going to work through this together. We're going to work through each section. We're going to complete this statement. And again, at the end of it, I think you'll see it's not nearly as intimidating as it appears. The reason there is so much detail in this, right, is that we really are trying to hold, as taxpayers, we're really trying to hold our governments accountable for how they're spending our money, where the money is being allocated. And when we split them out in a statement of activities like this, we can see how much each one of these programs is costing us and where are we getting the money for it, right? Is it from tax revenue? Is it from grants? Is it from charges for services like the airport? So that's why we break this down so deeply. So here are your 5 steps. I would review these steps in full and then go back and look at and just pause the video. Take these steps, pause the video, go to example 2.8, the template in your notes, 2.8, and try to complete the statement of activities there. Once you've done that, I would unpause this video and we'll walk through it together. I think that if you try to make sense of it on your own first and try to walk through it, you'll see where we're trying to get. And having some of it filled out will make it easier for you to follow along. So do me a favor, do that. Pause this video right now on this slide. Try to follow these steps and complete 2.8 in your notes, and then come back to the video in a minute. All right, now that I'm sure all of you paused the video and didn't just, keep it going for the sake of walking through this without trying it on your own first, welcome back. So here we have a fact pattern. Okay, this is going to be our fact pattern. You can see it tells us our expenses, it's going to tell us revenues, and we're going to prepare a statement of activities for the city of Northern Pines. They tell us in the fact pattern that they have no component units, so we don't have to worry about that. But one thing you should be aware of, and this is just a general note for your Connect problems, you are going to have some negative numbers in here, specifically the net expenses should be entered as negative numbers. You've got to enter those as negative numbers, or it's going to continue to tell you that you've got the answer wrong, and you're going to get frustrated with this. Hopefully some of you have used Connect before in your other classes, so this shouldn't be anything that's completely unfamiliar to you. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that fact. So step 1. We're simply going to review the facts provided and identify which items are governmental and which are business type activities. Now, hopefully you've read your text and they've went into greater detail about this, but obviously, we've talked about it a little bit. So which of these do we think would probably be governmental type expenses that we have? Well, general government's going to be obviously a governmental type expense. Public safety, same thing. Public safety is like your police officers, your fire department, things like that. Public works is going to be like the guys that fill the potholes on the street, right? Those are all government activities. They're not making any money on that, right? They're not charging you for that service. Hopefully not anyways. Hopefully when the fire department shows up at your house, like I said, in an earlier video, hopefully they're not handing you an invoice and going, hey, you've got to make a payment on this, or tell me how you're going to pay for this before we start putting this fire out for you. So just think about each one of these types of programs and think, okay, is this something where we've got an exchange transaction? Is there an exchange happening? So for like general government, public safety, public works, health and sanitation, culture and recreation, we know that no, we don't. We don't have an exchange taking place here, right? Culture and recreation, I would think of something like maybe like the Springfield's Art Museum or something like that, something that's owned by the city, but they're not really trying to make money off of it. It's just a service they're providing to the citizens. Now, this interest on long-term debt, they tell us specifically governmental type. We love it when they do that. It makes it so much easier for us, right? To go, oh my gosh, thank goodness they told us this is a governmental type interest. We can put that in the governmental type category. So these last two expenses here, these are accounted for in enterprise funds, right? These are business type activities. There is an exchange taking place here. The city provides you water and a sewer system as a service, and you're paying for it. If you don't pay for that service, they shut your water off. They shut your utilities off. They shut your sewer off, right? So that is an exchange, okay? Parking system, think about if you go to downtown Springfield and there are public areas to park, or there are parking garages and you have to pay to park in that parking garage. That is an exchange service that the city is providing for you. You are having to pay in exchange for that service. If you didn't pay for it, unlike the fire department or the police department, you would not get to use that service. So again, that is going to be a business type expense. Okay, so step 2, we want to look at the revenues. And we're going to identify which ones are what we call program related, and of those program related, which ones are charges for services or charges. Now, when I first started looking at government accounting, I thought charges for services are those charges for us. That's like an expense. That's not the case. These are charges. These are charges we are implementing on the people using these services. So this is a revenue for us. This is charges for us, right? And the other type of revenue that we're going to have within this program-related revenue are operating grants. So those will come from like other governments, or maybe a not-for-profit entity is going to provide us a grant to help us do research on better sidewalks or something like that. So when we say program services, what we mean is these are program specific. These are specific to a department or a service that is being provided by the city. So for example, for public safety, you may be talking about a police department. So any of the revenue that they've generated from like parking tickets or speeding tickets, or what other kind of tickets they give, littering, whatever tickets the city of Springfield gives out from their police department, the revenue generated from those are considered to be a program related revenue. That is a charge for a service. Okay. So one note I want to make here quickly before we move on and start working through getting these things placed in the right places. All tax revenue is considered to be general revenue, not program revenue, right? So we've got the two different types of revenue, program and general. Anything that is a tax is going to be a general revenue, right? We talked about this way earlier in chapter 1, but taxes are always considered to be general revenue. So take note of that when you're completing your statement of activities in your homework, or if you have one on an exam, something like that. Just know that those tax revenues are considered to be general revenue. And we will come back to this in step 4. We'll look at these, but for right now, we've got all the information we need to get started on what the top half of our statement of activities. So this is step 3. We're going to calculate the net expense or revenue and the change in net position. We're going to do that by taking the expenses minus the program-specific revenues. Okay, seems a little backwards, seems a little weird, but you'll see right here, we start with expenses. Okay, then we move on to the sum of our charges for services and our operating grants. Right? Notice there is no general revenue on here yet. We haven't talked about general revenue on the statement of activities yet. That's because this top portion is simply for government activities and for business type activities, okay? And part of the reason for that is because at the end here, we really do expect these government type activities in particular to be negative numbers, right? And that makes sense, okay? We don't expect the police department to generate enough revenue from the speeding tickets that they give out to support themselves, to fully fund themselves, right? They need supplementary funding from the primary government or for other governments or from not-for-profits, right? And in fact, in the state of Missouri, there is a statute in the revised statutes of Missouri, what we call the RISMO, that disallows revenue to be generated from traffic tickets after a certain point. I'm not sure what the exact number of thresholds are, but it is a statute in the state of Missouri that a municipality, a city, a village, whatever the case may be, cannot generate certain percentage of over a certain percentage of the revenue from speeding tickets, and that's program-specific revenue. So just be aware of things like that. We are expecting these numbers to be negative. Particularly when it comes to the governmental activities. Our real money, the money that's going to keep us from becoming, sorry, I had to stop and think there for a second. Sorry. The real money that's going to keep us from becoming insolvent is going to come from your general revenues, typically speaking. So those are your taxes and other types of general revenues, but specifically taxes. So as you can see here, we've simply taken the information that we got in our fact pattern and put it in here. So our general government, we had $9.7 million in expenses. We had charges for services of $1.1 million. We didn't have any operating grants. It left us with a total negative of $8,590,000 for general government activities, for governmental activities. Okay, so you can see here this formula is expenses minus program revenues, which are your charges, the sum of your charges for services plus your operating grants. That's going to equal your net expense or revenue. Typically, again, it's going to be negative, meaning simply that your expenses exceeded your program revenues, which we expect in the government. Okay, so for example, here we go. Again, your 9.7 million minus your 1.11 million is going to give you a negative $8.59 million in net expenses. Okay, so it's backwards from what we typically think. Typically, we would think our charges and services over here and then our expenses over here. But in this case, we've got them flipped around because we are expecting these to be negative. So one thing I want to note for you is that public safety, public works, health and sanitation, culture and recreation, interest on long-term debt, none of them, when you are going through, are going to have any business type activities amounts associated with them, right? Those are all governmental activities. So the logic stands to reason you're not going to have any business type activities associated with your general, with your governmental activities. And then the same thing goes for your business type activities, right? You're not going to have any governmental activities associated with your business types like your utilities or your parking system, okay? So all of that is going to get you down to your total primary government, right? So your total expenses from your primary government, your total cost. What did it cost us in total to operate our government? Okay, and you'll find that by taking your total government activities and summing it with your total business type activities. So go ahead, if you've unpaused and you're watching this and you're working trying to work through example 2.8 in the notes, pause it again, try to finish up now that you've got a little more information, and come back to this in just a second. All right, so welcome back for those of you that actually paused the video and tried to work through it yourself. I'm super proud of you. You can give yourselves a pat on the back for that. It's a difficult thing, especially the first time you see it. But now let's look at what that complete top half of the statement of activities looks like, right? So we can see that we filled in all our expenses, all our charges for services, any operating grants that we had. So those are our two types of revenues from our program revenues, right? Charges for services and operating grants, we know that. And then we can see we have a total governmental activities expense or cost of $47,338,000. Okay. Now we're going to move on. We moved on to the business type activities. We can see that we had $11.5 million in expenses and $12.6 million in revenues. So we actually had revenues that exceeded our expenses for the water system, although we did lose some money here with the parking system. Our expenses, again, exceeded our charges for service for the parking system. So what we actually end up with is a net positive number for our total business type activities, giving us a negative $46,331,000 in for these governmental and business type activity costs. So you can check your work here and make sure that you've got that top half correct. And we will now move on to what is step 4, which is to identify the general revenue items. Okay, so like I told you, general revenue items in this are going to be those tax items, right? All of these taxes are going to be considered general revenues. Okay, so we know our sales tax is general revenue. We know our investment earnings property taxes, sales tax, those are general revenue. Our investment earnings, they told us, is business type. We love that. And a special item was a gain on sale of unused land. That was governmental type. They told us that. We love that. And then we had a transfer, a little bit of a weird one here. We got a transfer from the governmental activities to the business type activities, right? So they took some money from the governmental activities and moved it to the business type activities. We will look at how to deal with that as we move on through to step 5. So step 5, we're basically going to try and find our net position at the end of the year here. And the way we do that is we start here with total primary government. Okay, so you take your total primary government, that was from the top half, right? Those are those ending figures you got from your top half. And you put those in here in your total primary government line. Okay, and then you're going to add your general revenues, your special items, any transfers that you had. Those are going to get added here in this header. So we'll start with property taxes, $27,112,000 in property taxes, right? So again, one thing to note, we will not have anything over here. Everything will be on this side because this is all general revenues, right? These are not specific program revenues. These are all general revenues. See, charges for services, operating grants, those are part of our program revenues. Everything else, particularly with taxes, is going to go into our general revenues. So you won't have to put any numbers on this side of your statement of activities at the bottom half. So we get our change in net position, this number here. And then we're going to add to that our beginning net position. This just makes sense, right? If you have a cash balance of $5 and then throughout the year you have a change of $10, at the end of the year you got $15, right? You're going to add your change to your beginning to get your ending. That's exactly what we're doing here. This is not something you guys haven't been doing for the entirety of your accounting academic career, starting in 201, I would imagine. So you're going to do this for your governmental activities, you're going to do it for your business type activities, and then you're going to do it for your total, the combined total for both. So Right now would be a good time to pause the video if you wanted to try to complete this part of the statement on your own. If I will give you a second here before I flip the slide so you got time to pause it, and we will come back and look at the complete picture. So this is the bottom half completed. Okay, this is the bottom half of your statement of activities. It's completed. You can check your work against this. I am confident that you guys have been going through this pretty easily. I would imagine you're all very intelligent. You're in master's programs, so you got to be, right? So I would imagine you're having an easier time with this than what you thought you might when you first saw this statement of activities. But if you're not, please, please, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to walk you through this and help you with it 100%. So this is the completed version. You can go through it and check your work here. You'll see that we've got a positive net position at the end of the year, which is good. We want our government to be solvent. Like I said, we do expect their costs at the top, those governmental activity costs and all that, those we expect to be negative, right? But at the end of the day, you'll see that the general revenues really kind of saved our bacon, right? The taxes in particular really helped us to be to have a positive net position at the end of the year. This is what it looks like in total. This is a complete statement of activities. You will be doing these in your homework. I probably won't make you do an entire one for an exam, although I'm half tempted to just have you guys fill one of these out as an exam, but probably not going to happen. We'll see. We'll do some exam review and see how you guys are feeling when we get closer to that. So, but this is what a complete statement of activities looks like. Again, if you've got any, I think this is probably the most complex, difficult statement we're going to do throughout the course of this class. So if you do have questions about this, or you're a little confused about why this number goes there, or why this is included in a business activity instead of a governmental type activity, please just let me know. I'm happy to help you guys and walk you through these things. So let me know if you got any questions.